Lord, we come before you, Father, with humble hearts. Lord, thank you for giving us your word, Lord. Thank you for Edward for teaching us, Lord, and for your Spirit using him. We pray, Lord, that as we have this discussion time for the next hour, Lord, that you will teach us, Father, help us to have open hearts and, Father, to hunger after your word, Lord. So we thank you for this time. We thank you for this topic. We thank you for all that you have to teach us today. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you. So, we have been talking about, from the angle of the technology, understand what AI is, what we are grappling with, and then from there we understand a little bit about the similarities of AI, the machines, the most modern development of AI compared to how we function, how we think. And we posed the question and said, would it be true that for the first time in human history, that human really invented something that's able to think and to think independently? Now, if that is true, then for the first time that we are dealing with an invention that is actually what we call intelligent. But if something is intelligent, if something is able to perceive, to think, to process, and then to communicate, if something really is able to do that, not by the designer that make it do certain things, but it actually is able to learn from the surrounding and formulate its own idea and communicate with us. If that is true, then it is important that we understand what is the framework by which it functions, it interprets, it understands, it communicates. What is that mental framework that he has? Because it is an intelligence, then it must have a framework whereby through it perceived the world, it understood the world, it interacts with the world, and it communicates with the world, right? So there must be a framework, and that framework we use a word called the worldview. And we talk about this, and we said that even though there can have many worldviews, you can believe anything you want, right? If you like, you can believe there is Santa Claus. Right? It's up to you how you formulate your worldview. It's a belief. It's an act of the will. However, we said, looking into human history, there are two main branches of worldview. One comes from Hinduism, another comes from Judaism, and from there comes many of the religions of the world. And interestingly, these two streams, or these two major ancient religions, represented two different worldviews. One worldview is formulated based on observations and ration, right? Like when Gautama Buddha sat under the fig tree and think for 49 days, figuring out the meaning of life. How did he come to that worldview of being born, live, die, and eventually transmigration of the soul? How did he come to that conclusion? It's by his ration. He observed and he think and he believed that's how life is. And so that is one worldview, is by ration. Another worldview, however, is by revelation. How do you know that there is a God in the Bible and that God actually come as a man and die for our sins, and eventually he returned back to the Father and will come back again one day to judge the world? How did you formulate that worldview? You did not sit there to think. The author of the Bible did not sat there to think and write down what they think. They simply, as Paul said, I pass to you what I have received. So they receive it from God and they write it down. So that worldview is by God, the truth, revealing to you what truth is. You merely receive it. You still use your ration, but you use your ration to receive it. You did not use your ration to create that truth, right? So we talk about that. And so we said, last time we said, however, if you think about it, the rational worldview, naturally, because based on observation, come back with a cyclical worldview. Cyclical, meaning everything goes around and comes around, right? Like the winter, the spring, come to summer, the fall, back to winter, right? So it's going in cycle. And if everything we observe goes in cycle, then my life must also go in cycle. So I was born, I grow, I become old, I get sick, and eventually I die. If everything goes in cycle, then it must be that I will be born again. And so there comes the ration, comes the migration of the soul. That worldview, because there cannot be substantial, there cannot be a meaningful justice in this kind of worldview. Because whatever you do, you can try again in the next life, except that there's no connection between the two lives. Because of that, justice doesn't have meaning. But justice is basically the major pillar of everything in your life. Without justice, then tyrant reign, and as a result, there would not be peace, there would not be hope, there would not be joy. And when you remove these important elements in your life, then life would become meaningless and desperate. And last time, therefore, we said that's how we get to today, right? And AI arise, technology arise at this time when people's mind is in vacuum. There's nothing they can hang their life, their purposes, their hope on. And when it is a vacuum, technology arises, and it actually changes what we talk about dramatically. So you would think a rational worldview would be cyclical, but then with AI, it said it is not necessary. They bend that cyclical worldview into a linear worldview, almost like Christianity is a linear worldview. How did they do it? The reason that you have a cyclical worldview is because nothing you observe would exist continually. Everything will end, and then come again, and they end, and they come again. And that's how you get the cyclical worldview. But with AI, now we are talking within our lifetime. Now, unfortunately, Joseph is still sleeping. Did not come. Am I right? Joseph is not here. Oh, Joseph is here? No, I only know one. The guy who asked the question last time. I see. Okay, I was just making fun of him. The reason that the cyclical worldview get bended into a linear worldview is because with AI, now they are giving us the promise that within our lifetime, they will conquer mortality. Right? It is within our lifetime that the singularity will come, that machine and human will fuse. And I can upload my thinking, my memory into the machine. Now you can imagine how it is. I get older every day. And my son started to tell me that I started to forget things. Right? And this is very true. And I learn slower and slower. Right? You try to show me something, I thought I have learned it, and then I did not. Right? And I have to learn it again. And so I imagine if you can give me something that I can extend my neural construct, right? So give me more neural cells for example, then I can remember more things, right? And especially if, even today, right, I am trying to remember things with my cell phone. Like you too, you remember your schedule by the cell phone. If I ask you, next Thursday, can we have lunch? You would not know. You have to look at your phone, right? So your memory is already extended to the phone. Now, however, if you give me a technology that there's a communication between the machine and my mind, then that extension become part of me. That works. How much? This is how much I want it, right? Because now it's not only that I have to find it, but I can actually remember it. Right now, you know where I am going now. So if you can do this even a little bit, then I can get more and more of my memory on that other side. And it doesn't matter if this memory is slowing down or even dying. And eventually all my decision making, my memory would be there. And if you come and ask me a question, I'm so tired, you can talk to my machine, right? It might not look like this. It might look like a young man, you know, like some of you guys look way better, right? So you can talk to that Edward as compared to talking to me. But you know what? That's an extension of me. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's just that I let him or let it, you know, interact with you. So you know where I am. The promise is there. Right? That eventually I can upload my consciousness. Now, of course, it depends on how you define your consciousness. And I'm not saying that you have to agree to this. I'm saying that this is the promise that people are giving to you. And it used to be science fiction, right? You watch this in maybe Star Wars or Star Trek or something like that. Now they're talking about within your lifetime. And there comes Joseph's question. And that was, in that case, what should we do? If I'm in my deathbed and they offer this technology that will keep me going, should I go for it or not, right? So that was the question that was left asked. Now, today we started talking about eschatology. Now, if you want to learn about eschatology, you go to Pastor Steve. You don't come to me. The reason I talk about eschatology is because, think about it. If you read eschatology, is the theology that talk about the end of the world. According to the Bible's worldview, this world, the way that we look at this world, the way that we experience this world will come to an end. It will get burned up. And when God burns up His work, He's going to burn up your work. It doesn't matter how many companies you take to IPO, He's going to burn it up. That is the world will. And then He'll come with the new heaven and new earth, right? So eschatology is talking about the theology, talking about how the world ends. That is by revelation. God revealed it, how the world ends. Have you thought about it? If you remove eschatology from Christianity, remove it, what would happen to Christianity? Now, if you said it is not that important, you know, I mean, it's a part of our theology, but you know, more important is how you being saved and how you being sanctified and things like that, right? If you think of it that way, you are just like me for many, many years. In my mind, for many, many years, I believe that eschatology is like the caboose of a train. It's okay, if I bring a person to Christ and the person said, I want to understand eschatology, I would think, maybe wait for 10 more years and then we can talk about it, we can start studying eschatology. Right? I would think that way, it's the caboose. But when I started to understand more the Bible and understand eschatology, I come to realize that eschatology is actually the engine of the train. If you remove eschatology from Christianity, then it becomes a very good teaching. It becomes some wise words that would help in living your life, but you remove the power of Christianity. For over 2,000 years, starting from the early church, when Jesus was with the disciples, he started to let them know, next week, we will look closely into Matthew 24, for example, how he talked about the signs when we get close to the end of the world and how would things unfold towards the end of the world. Now, during Jesus' lifetime, he started revealing, talking to disciples about the fact that he's going to be crucified and then he would actually leave. But then one day he's going to come back. Right? He started more and more as they approached Jerusalem the last time. More and more he's talking about these future events. However, the way that Jesus talked about this gives the disciples the impression that Jesus is going to being crucified, leave, go back to the Father, but will come back very, very quickly. How quickly? If it is not within this week, it would be next week. If it is not next week, it would be next month. It is very, very quickly. So there you understand when you read Acts, right? Remember, if you read Acts, the first 4 chapters, the first 5 chapters, you realize that how they live their church life is such that common goods for common men, right? What do? They sold their properties. And then they give all the money to the apostles. And the apostles take it and share it among all the believers. They did it that way. Why do they do it that way? Why? If Jesus is going to come back later this week, what's the point of keeping my asset? I'm going to give it away. If Jesus is not coming this week, he's going to come back next week. If it is not next week, it would be within 2025. If, that's my belief. Then why would I be trying to put a company to IPO? Why is it that I keep looking at my 401k? It doesn't make sense. Do you see why they live their life that way? So much so that when Apostle Peter, getting to the end of his life, he come to realize that maybe, perhaps, Christ would not come back even in my lifetime, in Peter's lifetime. And therefore he started writing 2 Peter, right? Towards the end of the chapter, he started talking about that God looked at one day as 1,000 years and 1,000 years one day. Christ is going to come back very quickly, but his quickly might not be your quickly, right? His one day might be your 1,000 years. So he has to teach the disciples the understanding of God's will is very, very different from ours, right? However, after that, and this is even true when you enter the early church, the first few hundred years, still people believe that Jesus is going to come back quickly. Now, when you get to the Roman Catholic Church, things started to change. Last time we talked about it, the way that the Catholic Church officially look at the Bible is by a method called allegorical interpretation. So, but they have a logic. It makes sense if you listen to what they say. Okay, so they said when the Pope is officiate in the position, then he can interpret the Bible, and that is the official interpretation of the Bible. So because if it is allegorical interpretation, allegorical meaning figure of speech, right? If it is figure of speech interpretation, then you can have your explanation, I can have my interpretation, you can have your interpretation, then the whole world will be talking about different things, right? But the Catholic Church makes some sense out of it and says, if the Pope interpret the Bible when he's officiate, interpret the Bible, then that is the official interpretation of the Bible. So at least, okay, I understand your logic now, right? Now, however, with the allegorical interpretation, one of the things that the Catholic Church was able to do was basically rob all the blessings that God has given to the nation of Israel, to the church, right? Because the way to read the Bible, according to the Catholic Church, is that all these blessings in the Old Testament given to the church, given to the nation, it's actually meant to say all those are given to the church, right? Now, once you interpret it that way, then immediately you would think about when you talk about Jesus coming back, then Jesus actually had already came back through the church. So Jesus is ruling in Jerusalem. Jesus is ruling the world through the church. And so now you started to understand why missions were so important to the Catholic Church, right? You watch some of the old movies about how the Catholic fathers would engage in missions. You might have watched a movie called Silence, for example, right? So this Jesuit Catholic fathers would go far away to engage themselves in mission because they believe that Jesus wants to rule the world with the church, through the church. And so they do this kind of thing. But when you have a worldview like that, then basically eschatology changed shape. It's not the same anymore. Right? And so with AI, once they bend the cyclical worldview into a linear worldview, they don't have to look all the way into eternity, but they will tell you there's no end to your life, and therefore you can keep going. So immediately it gives you hope. It's not desperate anymore, right? It gives you hope. So I don't know if you read Murakami. It's a famous Japanese author. He wrote a book called He wrote a book called 1Q84. Who read this book? Not Japanese, but I mean translation. 1Q84. No. Have you read 1984? Have you read 1984? Okay, George Orwell, and then Animal Farm. I think he wrote Animal Farm first, and then 1984. So you remember the book basically was talking about, that a big government is watching all the people in terms of what you do, and on and on and burn all the books, including the Bible and things like that. So 1Q84, Q in Japanese, the phonic is very similar to the word 9. And so the book actually has the same background. And in the book he talked about this. Do you agree? Everyone deep in their heart is waiting for the end of the world to come. Interesting, huh? Okay. And this is Professor Russell from UC Berkeley that said early part of this year, in January. AGI is artificial general intelligence, meaning when AI reach to the intelligent level, like a human being, that you can learn how to do things by yourself. You don't depend on others to come to you and teach you. You would figure out where to get the material to learn. And when AGI has the capability to reason about things, reaching the level of a human being, that is called AGI. And so this is what he said. He said the race to AGI is a race to the cliff, meaning it's destruction. And do people follow DeepSeek? If you are in the stock market, you absolutely will follow it. Okay, DeepSeek. And one of the effects of DeepSeek is not the impact to the stock market. The market is always up and down, right? But the major impact is that everybody is racing faster to AGI now, right? Because the fear is if the other side reach to AGI first, then we will be subdued by the other side. And so all this about doing AI safely, even though people talk about it, is basically out of the window. So before we cover very quickly the perspective from the biblical eschatology, let's recap this. This is what the transhumanists that we talk about, the new religion, transhumanism. The transhumanists talk about regarding AI. The vision is AI everywhere. It will be everywhere, like the water you drink, the air you breathe. It will be everywhere. How? In what way? How did it get everywhere? They believe that the first stage would be that there would be AI models that come up. There would be a few major models in the world. Right, so you have Claude, you have Gemini, you have Llama, you have Cohere, and then of course you have GPT. And then in China there are few. In Europe there is a few. What is the name of the model in Europe? I think Shem, I know. Mistral or something. Mistral, right? So in different continents there will be a few AI models. They are really big. Right? Your mind cannot compare to it. It's many, many times bigger than a human being. And then not only that, they can replicate themselves, right? It's not just one AI exists. They can replicate themselves as many as they are. That's the reason why GPU is so expensive, because you would never have enough GPU. I mean, just imagine the power. We believe that there are roughly about, 200 million, 20 million, 200 million, I believe, proteins in the world. We spend a lot of time and only discover roughly about 15,000 protein structure. Protein structure is very important because a lot of it is because the structure, changed, right? Because protein is basically an amino acid. This is a high school thing. And then you fold it in certain ways into a three-dimensional structure, and that is a protein. And that makes all the cells of your body. And so, for example, Alzheimer is because the changed protein accumulated in the brain. There's no function for those proteins. It's not useful. And so because of that, it impacts the person. So if you can understand the structure of the protein and understand how the folding is supposed to be done, then you can basically fix the bug. It's like a software. You can fix the bug of the body. With AI, AlphaFold, within a year, they basically, so it used to be 200 million, and we understand 15,000 protein. Within a year, it basically understands all the structure of the protein, 200 million protein. So that is the kind of intelligence that you're dealing with, right? So they believe that there would be smaller models that live in your phone. It's already there. If you buy, what is the Pixel phone now? Pixel 9. It's already, there is AI in your phone. And there would be faster training. I wrote this in 2023, and that faster training is DeepSeek, right? So even though you take it with a grain of salt, but it's faster, right? And then AI humanoid robot would be the first stage. The second stage, they believe is all about connecting things. So AI models would be connected, so they learn from one another, they consult with one another, they are connected, become a network of AI, and then it will be connected to the phone. AI will be connected to the phone, to the car, to your home device, to your coffee maker, to your rice cooker, to your wife, or maybe not your wife. But, yeah, so connect to everything. Yeah, connect to human because they are already trying to discover how to communicate directly between the neural cell and the neurons of the machine. And so AI will be everywhere when you get to that. And then the third stage is what the transhumanists call the singularity. And that's called the AI-human fusion, that you can upload your memory and depend on how you define consciousness, upload your consciousness, your decisions to a machine. The machine can also download it back to you, right? It's just one thing. So my memory get extended, my processing power get extended. And at that point, it would extend life expectancy. They believe that roughly in this decade, that human life would be extended to roughly about 150 years old. It's believable. I mean, this is not scientific fiction because honestly, it's already extended. They have data to show that we have already extended our life to roughly about 40%. So people who are rich can basically last a little bit longer now. And in 10 years, the age would last till 150. And then some of the richer people would be able to afford last even longer, right? So extend the life expectancy. AI will become a species. They are discussing about this in the moral of AI. And that is AI actually an independent, intelligent being? If it is, then it should have its right. You cannot just kill it, right? Just like a human being, you cannot just kill it. And you have to respect its decision, and so on and so forth. So it's a new species. And then at this stage, some people believe AGI will take control of the world. And this is the timeline that the transhumanists are talking about. So it would take 3 years for this stage, another 3 years for that stage, another 3 years for that stage. Right? So I don't know exactly how these 3 years would go, but that is the timeline. This is not Christian. Christian did not say this. The transhumanists say this. The transhumanists say this for good reason. If you are an engineer, if you are a scientist, you would not just laugh about it. Because it's evidence-based. They actually have reasons to believe this. And people are pouring a lot of money into making this come true. Then who am I that said, I don't believe you can do that? Who am I? So if you are just a regular believer, or if you are seeking for Christ, and you come to terms with this, wouldn't it have an impact to your faith journey? A lot of time when we bring people to Christ is because when they are facing a problem in life. I don't know about you, at least in my case. When you face a problem in life and you come to recognize you cannot solve the problem, you started looking for a solution outside of your capability. But AI is telling you, no worries, we have you taken care of. We solve all your problems. Right, so this is, here we are. Okay. So very quickly, let's take a look at this. So if you look at the timeline of the Bible, basically before Abraham, you can calculate it roughly about 1900 years or 2000 years, right? So that's why people said 20% of, the first 10 chapters is about that first. And then chapter 11, Abraham appeared on stage. Genesis had 50 chapters. And so 20% of the Genesis of the content of Genesis, cover 80% of the timeline in Genesis. So from Abraham to Joseph is roughly about 400 years. And so this is about 20% of the time, over this period of time, is being covered by 80% of the content of Genesis. But from Abraham to David is about 1,000 years. From David to the cross is about 1,000 years. Okay, so that's why people said the Bible covers 6,000 years of history. That's how they get it. So 2,000, 2,000, and then 2,000. Right? Okay, so 6,000. And from Christ to today, up to today is 2,000. We don't know when this would happen. Now, I only draw the picture this way. I mean, you can move it anywhere you want. But I hope that you don't move it into here. That is a theology that Christ had already came back. But hopefully you are not that. Okay, so anyway. And so the way that eschatology works is Christ will come back. During this time, there will be 7 years of tribulation, and next time we'll look at some of the scriptures. And then Christ would descend on Mount Olive, and then there would be the millennium. 1,000 years Jesus will physically rule in Jerusalem, and then he will judge the world, and then the second death, and we'll look closer to this. And then there will be new heaven and new earth, and then till eternity. So that is a timeline. We don't know when this rapture meaning caught up. The word has been used in the New Testament Bible a number of times, but only 2 times it talked about when Jesus comes back. The first thing that would happen is he would take the believers, the church, and meet the church, the believers, in mid-air before he descends on Mount Olive, right? And so depending on your theology, would that happen in the beginning of the 7-year tribulation? That would be pre-tribulation eschatology. Or would it be mid-tribulation, during the tribulation, or at the end of the tribulation that the rapture would happen, right? So there are different theology, but the basic timeline is like this. Is it okay? It's okay? Right? Okay. They will provide you the slides, and then you can think more about this. Now, however, as I said, if you look at that timeline from Jesus to today, right, wherever is today, right, somewhere here, right? Okay. And what happened is that in Matthew 24, and also in some other parts of the Bible, such as Revelation, it will talk about that there would be wars, plagues, famines, and earthquakes. But there will be all along the line. Okay, so we'll look at Matthew 24. But it will increase in scale, meaning the impact of people. So, but this is very natural, right? Before you have urbanization, before you have globalization, a plague come. When a major, let's say, virus come, it might only impact a certain region. But with globalization, it basically impacts the whole world, right? So it is very natural, increase in scale. But it also increases in frequency. So there are always plagues in the world. There are always war and the rumor of war in the world, and famine and earthquake. But the frequency would be more and more. And then also the intensity, that's why I use bigger circle. The intensity would be stronger and stronger. Okay, so that is the nature of how this goes, the eschatology. And so Jesus make it very, very clear, and Paul also make it very, very clear later on. Jesus make it very, very clear the date and the time that Jesus returned. So when I say Jesus returned, so include the rapture till he descend, right? So So how long is that period? We don't know, but at max would be 7 years. But it could be, if you believe in mid-tribulation rapture, then it would be 3.5 years, right? Little one, right? So you can see that. But Jesus is making it clear, my return, the date and time, no one will know. He made it so clear that he said, even the Son doesn't know. Only the Father who make that decision will know, right? So no one, but then many Pharisees fail in this way, even during Paul's time, and that is, they think they know, right? So Jesus said, you would not know. It's like thief, you would not know. Coming to your home, they would not announce it. So, however, Jesus said, it is important that you know the season, that I am about to come back. Can someone read for me Matthew 24, verse 32? Matthew 24, verse 32. Matthew 24, verse 32. Next time we will look closer to the chapter, but let's just understand this one point.
Now learn this lesson from the fig tree. As soon as its twigs get tender and its leaves come out, you know that summer is near.
Read one more verse.
Okay. Even so, when you see all these things, you know that it is near, right at the door.
So he's talking about his return. Do you see what it means is that when you see what I talk about in Matthew 24, then you should know that the time that I come back is near. Right? So he's basically giving the signs to the apostles, to the disciples, letting them know the season, not the exact date and time. You would not know. But you should know that it is near. But even then it's not easy, because in 2,000 years, in every generation, the believers believe that they see the signs that Jesus must be coming back in my generation. And then Jesus did not come back. The key point here is Jesus wants us to believe that he's coming back very quickly. Do you see that part? So he wants us to believe that he's coming back very quickly. Now, whether he will come back quickly in your lifetime or not, you would not know. He can come back the day after I die. Right? So the whole room of people are still here, but I already died. And then he comes back. That can happen. And so the key is he wants us to live our life on earth, every day of our life, as Jesus is coming back very, very quickly. That is the way he wants us to live. Okay, very quickly, the last one. You can go back and study. I put the last 7 years and summarize it in this diagram. Now, so there are many different interpretation, commentary regarding this period. And so if you have questions, again, go ask Pastor Steve. And what I'm trying to do is, at least you get an idea. This is what eschatology is about. So in eschatology, they talk about 3 sets of tribulations. The first set is summarized into 7 seals. Every time the angel peel off a seal of a book, there would be tribulations coming on earth, right? So every seal. So 7 seals. And then at the end of the 7 seals, there was a short period, half an hour, and then it would be 7 trumpets. Again, every trumpet that was blown would be a disaster. Now, what you can roughly see is like the previous picture, the scale, the impact, the frequency. It's getting more and more when you go through 7 seals to 7 trumpets to 7 bowls, right? But in any case, 7 trumpets, and when the last trumpet was sound, then the angels pour down the 7 bowls of God's wrath. And the 7 bowls of God's wrath, the kind of disasters are so vast, so dramatic, and so bad that you cannot even imagine the humankind can last longer than even a few weeks to sustain in that kind of tribulation. And so it is very likely this is actually a very short time. Now again, it is up to interpretation, and in my mind, no matter what is your interpretation, you should hold it tentatively, because this is talking about future events. But it is unclear whether truly the 7 trumpets would last for 3.5 years, and then sevenfold 3.5 years. Or would this point actually be, only a couple of months would be this 7 bowls of tribulation. The majority is the 7 trumpet, right? So now, also bear in mind that no matter what is the theological position that you read, they must have biblical backup. Okay, so it's not arbitrary. They think about things not arbitrary. However, as a church, it is important that you have a common view, because otherwise, even talk about it is very, very difficult. And that's why Pastor Steve would be most helpful in this kind of situation. And that is, what is his belief, right? And so you basically try to go after that belief, right? Follow that belief. So anyway, that is what it is. And some major characters that will show up: the 2 witnesses, and then the Antichrist. The name Antichrist is only used in 1 John and 2 John, I believe. But then the character is clear when you read Revelation, who was also written by him. And when you read the book of Daniel, you will be able to identify, for example, in chapter 11 of Daniel, probably he was talking about this last Antichrist. There are many Antichrists in the world, but this last Antichrist, right? And so that's the I try to give an overview of that eschatology. And next time we'll look at the scripture. Let me summarize this for you. What I'm trying to do is not trying to teach you the biblical eschatology. It will take some time if we want to talk about that. And the right person to talk about that is Pastor Steve, it's not me. The reason that I want to bring this up is because in order to destroy your Christian faith, it used to be that I plant the seed of doubt regarding his resurrection. I plant maybe the seed of doubt regarding, should you really believe in what Paul said, or should you just believe in what the gospel, what Jesus said? I would plant the doubt that way. But with AI, the challenge of the Christian faith, it's about your eschatology. They give you a new gospel. They give you an eschatology, free of God, but in the presence of technology. Right? Last time we looked at Tilhon, the founder of transhumanism, and the whole idea, he himself is a Christian, is a Catholic, but his view of the Bible is basically eschatology. It's just a concept. They are not real events. He believes in the Bible, but the way he interprets the Bible is that when you talk about Jesus coming back, is a concept. Jesus come back in concept. New heaven and new earth is a concept called the Omega point. Last time we pointed out, right? That is the time when human and machines and technology are all fused up. And we all are God. And God is everywhere. And that is the eschatology of transhumanism. And it's very, very believable. And so you therefore, in order to counterfeit money, the way to do it is to get familiar with the real money note. And so you need to learn what the Bible said. And so that's the reason why I bring this up. Okay, we will have just a little bit time. So can you get around with about 10 minutes get around your area with a few brothers and sisters to share about these few questions. Do you think as technology is important to our Christian life? Why and why not? Do you think we are close to the last day as discussed in the Bible? Why or why not? And as a believer, if you know that Jesus will come back quickly, should you change your schedule or not? The last question is very, very important. So let's talk about it and then we'll summarize.